No, I think we all know what a challenge it is to go to Lubbock, Texas. I was at Texas A&M 9 years. Never did we play how they scheduled. You never played at Austin and at Lubbock in the same season. They always split those two up. Um, so to go do it back-to-back weeks, I mean, it's a heck of a challenge, obviously. Um, the thing about Texas Tech, I've watched them a lot, over the years. It shows you, I think, what continuity does, what continuity in a system does. You look at the great offensive teams. Let's take Boise State, for instance, because I put them in the same category as Texas Tech. I mean, they've been in that scheme for, 12 years, 14 years, regardless of who the head coach is. Boise State's changed head coaches, just like Texas Tech's changed head coaches, but they still are in the same exact offensive scheme. And that's something you really see that really jumps out at you, is just how fast they execute, how comfortable they are in the scheme, how they recruit to their scheme. And I think that's a great model for us here is, if you kind of think about 5 years from now, if we stay consistent, if we keep continuity with our offense, evolving to what our defense will be, although we're not exactly what we're going to be on defense just yet. I think it's really jumps out at me. But just continuity in what Texas Tech does. As I said, I've watched them on offense a lot. I had them last year in person against Oklahoma State in Lubbock. I've been around their coaches. I've been around their scheme. If you watch them against Texas State, quite honestly, the Texas State game, they were on fire. That's as good as I've seen them play. The quarterback was hot. They've got a couple big, tall receivers in number 14 and number 22. They've got some speed receivers in 1 and 4. They really are good. They've punted one time all season. They've been up about 36-6 at halftime of the two games. We all know what they did last year here in this stadium. So, it's obviously quite a challenge. As far as our standpoint, probably sounds crazy. I'm actually kind of encouraged, just based on going back. I was just with Bob DeBess here before I came up. I apologize about being late. We just went back through and actually, again, went through the Texas game a little bit as we kind of evolve here. Man, there were a lot of little wins in that game. There really were. So our whole thing, let's correct what we can correct right now. There's certainly a lot of things we can correct, that we can coach better and that we can execute better. The things that we can't correct right now that are going to take time, don't become frustrated by them. Just continue to do what we're doing. I really like the attitude of our players. I really like the attitude of our coaches. That's where it is. I think, today, the anniversary of 9/11, all of us probably can remember exactly where we were, exactly what we were going to do, what we were doing when that tragedy hit. I was actually sitting in a meeting room with the defensive coaches. We were getting ready to play Joe Tiller at Purdue. And the trainer knocked on the door, which they never knock on the door to interrupt those kind of meetings. And he said, "Coach, you need to come out here and look at this." And we walked out, and then on the television, showed the tower. So that's amazing when you think about that. But I'm sure all of us can think exactly where we were and exactly what we were doing when that announcement first came. So with that said, be happy to take any questions.
What's the updated status on BR and
Yeah, I think BR would be doubtful. He did throw yesterday, but again, he's extremely sore. But man, if there's a guy that can do it, it's BR. He's been in that training room and through treatment a few times over his 5-year career. And Lamar, I would say, is out for this week. I would say he's out right now.
How does it affect your game plan?
Like it affected us with 12 minutes to go in the second quarter in Austin. You know, it was a pretty good game plan. It's amazing when you think about it. There were 12 minutes left in the second quarter when B.R. Holbrook went down. And at that point, it couldn't have gone any better according to plan, schematically and execution-wise and the whole thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious, you know, the situation we're in there. And I think the reality of what that is, I think, you know, BR was – there were 3 quarterbacks that quit this team last year during the season, left. There was a 4th quarterback that transferred in the spring out of here. And I think there was a quarterback before that, the year before, that left. So that's where we are. That's where we are. So it definitely affects everything we do. But with that said, you know, I expect Cole Gauchi to get better each and every week. You know, he started out pretty good against Texas. I think when the game started sliding a little bit, when they started to impose their will a little bit on us, and the magnitude of the situation, I think it caught up to him in the third quarter a little bit. You know, particularly just communication-wise, and we had some things happen that were the direct result of communication with the quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. It affects, you know, Lamar was our most valuable player, most explosive player in the spring. But you know, BR is really the critical piece of that. You know, we have some other receivers who can go in there and do some things.
Coach, you mentioned little wins against Texas. Do you have any examples?
Oh, many. You know, what we were going to do was make a tape, actually, of, you know, let's say there were 150 plays in that game, maybe, or 145 total plays. If you went through and you just said, let's take out the plays our coaches thought we won on, there was probably 50 plays in that game, or 60 plays. We won that play. And just schematically, even athletically, some plays our guys made, there were a lot of wins. And again, you know, I've always kind of laughed at people or coaches that said, hey, that shouldn't have been a 45-0 game. That shouldn't have been. That shouldn't have been. You know, Mac Brown would tell you the same thing. And that's what's unfortunate. But that's what the score ended up being, and that's what it is. But as long as we know, as long as the coaches know and the players know, and we're able to say, listen, here's what we can correct right now. This had nothing to do with those guys in the orange shirt. This had to do with us. There's so many of those things that it encourages you that we can get it solved. He's been sacked one time all year. They've punted one time. Their offense, really, it's I give them a lot of credit. You know, they get rid of the ball in a hurry. He's back there in a shotgun. They have the perfect quarterback because his release is so quick. You know, there's some guys that are back there in a shotgun that are a little bit robotic. I mean, he catches and it's out of there. You know, and they take those giant splits on the offensive line. And they, as I've said, I mean, for 12 years they've recruited for that. So they've got the 2 340-pound, 6'7" tackles. You know, they've got the right personnel for the scheme. So you're really not going to, you know, you can't go in there and say, well, we're just going to blitz him and get the ball out of his hand. That's not really realistic. More than anything in this game, more than anything, it's tackling. It is tackling, particularly in space. And that's a problem we have. You know, if you go back and look at last year's tape, of all the problems, that's the single biggest problem. If you look at us against Texas, probably if you had to say in the end, it was tackling pretty talented guys in the open field. So that's the problem we have. To try to remedy that a little bit, we're going to try to get lined up as quick as we can so they're not thinking. We're going to try to play a lot of players. You know, we played 15 true freshmen against Texas. We'll play everybody. I mean, we're playing them all, and we're playing them early in this game because fatigue's a factor. You know, they're a quick tempo, snap the ball, they're spreading you out, you're chasing the ball. So, you know, we're going to move ahead, and we're going to come out of this saying playing at Texas Tech, playing Boise in 2 weeks. is a positive, and it's a good thing because we're playing a lot of guys. We're getting a lot of guys' feet wet, and we're getting better through this experience.
Coach, early on in that game, did you hit Texas when they woke up Sunday morning? Did they feel like the Lobos hit them? Do you think?
You know what? They had some pretty strong bodies out there. You know, we glanced off them a few times. We hit them, but we didn't exactly punish them. Put it that way. I think more than that, I don't think there's any doubt they knew with at halftime. You know, with a blocked punt and with a punt returned on us, which is our own fault, both of them, that was a pretty even football game. Just looking at the tape, trying to be as honest as you can be looking at it, it was pretty even. You know, and there were a couple of plays where they were just flat more athletic than us, and there was in the kicking game you could really see it. That's where it really jumped out at you, and you said, "Wow," you know. But overall, you know, there were some positives. There were some positives.
Coach, what can you do for Cole to make him a more effective passer? Is it technique? Is it confidence? Or is it
I think it's all of the above, and we've had a lot of conversations about that. You know, it's a lot of things. It's probably like me swinging that driver. You know, I mean, where do you start? And maybe you just start over. But again. You know, something I've learned too, when you ask a quarterback to run options, it's hard to throw the ball. You know, if he was just doing one thing, if he was just concentrating on throwing every second, that's one thing. Or if he was just doing that in the game. But when you're an option style, you're running, you're this, you're asking that kid to do a lot. Physically, you're asking them to do a lot. They get fatigued, they get hit, there's reads. So it's going to take time. It's going to take time, but that is something that Bob DeBess and I have talked about at length because nobody wants to be a better player than Cole. I think Cole has really good ability. You know, so that's a lot of thought going into that through this season, and then particularly in the off season, to try to get him where he is efficient throwing the ball. That's. I think so. I mean, I think Cole would be the guy, but I think Quentin McCown, again, he had no spring practice. And I told him yesterday, if there's one descriptive word, he's wobbly. You know, he just looks, you know, he looks like a newborn lamb or something out there. You know, like he doesn't have a whole lot of strength in his legs. He's kind of wobbling around, but he does have some ability. So yeah, I think you would see both those guys, Rick. I think that's fair to say because McCown probably does throw it a little better than Cole. Not enough that you say, hey, listen, it's Quentin McCown right now. But, yeah, we're kind of a work in progress there, no question. Yeah.
Coach, you had more penalties actually against Texas than Southern. Is that the communication issue you're talking about?
They should have had a few more, too. I mean, Texas should have had a few more, too. And we sent those to the Mountain West Conference office. I mean, I normally don't say anything, but man, we should have been about even on penalties now if we look back. But, yeah, those penalties, we had the one personal foul that was a frustration penalty. One time we took a delay with the punt team intentionally just to back it up 5 yards because we were pooch punting. We had probably 3 that were direct result of Cole changing the snap count tempo where he got a little rattled and we weren't as rhythmic as we should have been. And we had another one where the center snapped the ball, and it was the same thing. Most of it was the communication of the quarterback getting rattled in that game. I don't think we had a defensive penalty in the game. You know, we should have had a penalty or two more on our punt team because our gunner was kind of moving when the ball was snapped. So we were fortunate there. But yeah, I mean, all of them, 90% of them are directly related to just communication, the quarterback getting a little off rhythm, getting a little discombobulated in the game.
Is Savannah going to play? And how much are we going to see out of Rod Davis?
Tabana will probably play. Rod Davis may play a little bit. I think Tabana will play if he practices like I think he'll probably practice all week. I think he'd play in this game.
Coach,
Pardon?
Who's going to replace him?
You know, Carlos Wiggins is behind him on the depth chart. So Carlos would be the guy that you would see doing the things that Lamar would do. And we're excited about Carlos Wiggins. You know, I mean, he's 153 pounds or something. But he's a good player. You saw him at Texas. He carried a jet sweep. He returned a kickoff. You know, he's a pretty good little player.
I know you wouldn't bring Davie back just because of the quarterback situation, but what is the status on him right now?
You know, I haven't talked to him. He's still going to class. He's still, you know, doing the things he's supposed to do to take care of his business. I really haven't put a lot of thought into it. I really haven't communicated with him. Yeah.
But you guys did really well with time of possession battle until VR went out.
Yeah.
Can't go on Saturday. What do you guys do to supplement that skill set with a couple of guys that can't replace what you do?
Good question. I mean, that's what this is, right? I mean, with BR, we're fairly balanced. We're pretty good schematically. All of a sudden, when it's just Cole, we're not as balanced. We're not as balanced. So we really have to be creative in ways that Cole can throw the football and have success. We have to be creative how we get Quentin McCown in the game. And we've got to grow. You know, we've got to build. It's going to take time. I mean, that's two quarterbacks that you really shouldn't even be talking about right now that are in the middle of it and potentially the entire game plan. So I think we just have to grow a little bit, be intelligent, be a little bit creative, and just keep plodding ahead, keep grinding and keep plodding ahead. And you know what? Other people have to play better. You know, I know we're not really capable right now on defense of really, you know, taking it over or putting it on the defense, but we got to get better on defense. You know, we got to create some turnovers. You know, we played the whole game. Texas, really Joe Harris dropped the interception, flat dropped one in front of our bench, but Texas didn't turn the ball over, which is a major for us defensively to get off the field. We have to create turnovers, but also for our offense and field position. Kickoff return. Our average starting kickoff return against Texas was on the 17-yard line. Well, come on. The amount of time we spent on kickoff return, so it's a lot of those things as we try to get the quarterback better. But we've got to get better just overall, period, in everything we do.
Anything else for Coach?
With Tech being so pass heavy, what concerns you most about your secondary and how will it hold up?
Everything. You know, we were the 120th. We were dead last in the country last year in passing efficiency on defense here. It's not going to all of a sudden, you know, we're not going to walk out there and just jump up in Tech's grill and cover them every down, you know. But we've got some young players. You're going to see the two twins, the Jackson twins. You're going to see Cranston Jones. We started two walk-ons against Texas. You know, we had Tim Foley in the game at corner and Matt Raymer, who right now has become maybe our best player in the secondary. You know, we start two walk-ons in the secondary. We're going to play a lot of guys. We're going to rotate guys in there. We're going to try to keep them fresh. We're going to try to keep it simple, let them go play, and build for the future is what we need to do. You know, it's not so much playing Texas Tech again. It's what can we do? What can we correct? You know, how do we look? We're going to work like heck on the no-huddle, up-tempo, fast-paced offense so we get lined up, so we just don't give them stuff, you know, and that's what we're going to be. We're going to run and play as hard as we can play for as long as we can play.
Coach, this is the last game in the series. Would you like to have Texas Tech on the schedule in subsequent years? Or?
What's the record of that series now?
One back
How many they won in a row now? What is it? 13 or 14 they've won? Yeah.
Okay, never
But
mind.
no, I'm being just sarcastic. I mean, honestly, you know, for us to get to go to Texas and play Texas, and honestly, should have played better than we played. As I look back on it now, we should have played better than we played at Texas, honestly. That was a great experience. You know, all the recruits, the Longhorn Network, talking to kids on the phone. I talked to, I think, 18 kids last night. That's a great experience. To get to go to Texas Tech and play, that's a great experience. I mean, next year we go to A&M. That's where we're recruiting. That's where we're recruiting. So all of that is a positive thing. I think Texas, Paul's back there, but I think Texas Tech and A&M and New Mexico, that's a natural deal. You know, Lubbock and Albuquerque and you know, so yeah, I mean, that all makes sense to me. It really does.
Coach, you mentioned
Defensively, we actually did. We played better on defense, as crazy as this sounds, in my mind, than we did against Southern. We played better against Texas than we did Southern. Now, we had some really self-inflicted things. Texas had 4 touchdowns on things that the first touchdown was a scramble by the quarterback, the boot, and we missed tackles, but we were late getting lined up on that play. It was 4th and 1. They were in a different formation. We were late getting lined up. He comes scrambling out of there and goes 40 yards, 50 yards. They run a little jet sweep that counted as a pass for 45 yards for a touchdown. We had 3 busts on that play, 3 mental busts where our defensive line actually went the wrong way. That was a touchdown. We had them 3rd and 16 on the 22-yard line with a minute something left in the half, and it's 10-0. They're just trying to throw a crossing route to kick a field goal to make it 13-0. We had a bust on that play that the kid takes it and scores. And on their last touchdown, they throw the ball to the tight end. We had a senior corner that's up on the line of scrimmage instead of back playing half-field coverage. We had 4 busts in that game that really resulted in big plays. But overall, we played more physical against Texas. We tackled actually better at times against Texas. We played harder, I think, against Texas on defense than we did against Southern. So, so we were a little better. Offensively, we were really good until the air came out of it, until we, probably got in our mind we weren't going to win the game, to be quite honest. When it was the second half, they took the second half drive and scored. Now Cole's in there. We're down 24-0. We can't throw it. Honestly, we probably caved in from an execution. There was never one effort time in that game that you could put that on and say, hey, that guy's not playing. But from a just mental communication, I think we probably caved in a little bit in the second half on offense. And then eventually on defense as it kind of wore down.